Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some Pittsburgh Steelers breakdown and analysis. Today I want to do something a little bit different, a little bit fun, a little bit silly overall, but it's the off season. I'm sure you guys have seen by now these tier rankings and lists, and I'm probably 3 months late to everybody else doing them, but I wanted to try to incorporate the Steelers into a tier list. And so what we'll do today is rank the Steelers by position group. So being able to put the Steelers position groups overall into tiers. If you're unfamiliar with how this works, and I'm not an expert on it either, but my best shot at it is S tier is the top tier, so that is the best position group. You can't be any better, any higher than that. The A plus, I guess you could call it, and then obviously A, B, C, and D. D being the worst. And so today we'll talk about the positional groups to kind of go through a brief overview of the position, and I will rank where each group lands. We're going to start here with quarterback, and I think there's so much uncertainty there for the first time since I'm trying to think of a time when there was more uncertainty with the Steelers quarterback position. Even in 04, when Ben was drafted, there really was no true quarterback competition. It was Maddox as the clear number one, Batch as the then clear number two before he got hurt, and Ben as the number three. Then Batch gets hurt very early, I think in the summer that year. Maddox goes down week two. The rest is history. Trubisky right now is going to be your slight favorite entering camp with Pickett and Rudolph challenging. I don't think Rudolph gets it unless it's by default in terms of injury or everyone else kind of really falls on their face. So this group certainly has a ton of question marks. It's lacking the present day top end talent overall to compete in the AFC North and AFC at large. So I'm going to put this in C group right now. I think schematically Pickett and Trubisky and even Rudolph can fit Canada's system better than what Ben could last year. And you hear about the quarterbacks and some other guys, other position groups talk about the new terminology that's in this offense. And you don't hear that too often with a returning OC like Matt Canada in your number two, but that really shows how much Canada had to do to kind of fit what worked best for Ben. I'm not saying that's good or bad. It's just what it was last year. So this will be the chance for Canada to really and truly run his offense. I think these guys fit that better, but they're going to lack the leadership, the intangibles, the experience, handling pressure, and things like that. And so this group, we'll see what happens. I'll put it in the C tier for now. We'll go running back next, and it's kind of a tale of two tiers in itself at the running back position. You have Najee Harris at the top, your clear workhorse back. He's going to be the guy again. Very little concern overall with this game. There is the thought there about the explosive, game-breaking plays. He's never going to be a guy that's going to run away from an entire defense. But I think the explosive runs of 15, 20-plus yards are going to be more dependent on the blocking of receivers and tight ends and things like that, more so than Harris himself being able to do that all on his own. That's typically how it goes unless you do truly have a burner who runs a 4-3 something. That guy maybe can create those big plays with his wheels alone. But if you get better receiver blocking, you're going to get more of those longer and explosive runs. The other half of this is the depth at running back, and there really is not much there in terms of a true, running back. Benny Snell, to me, I think he's carved out a good niche as a special teamer, but he's not a defined, backup running back. Anthony McFarland is a total dart throw in year number three. It's make or break for him. What do you have in undrafted guys like Mateo Durant, Jalen Warren? It's really hard to speculate. So I'm debating between A and B tier. Harris himself, I think, puts you into A tier. The depth that is lacking there may shift it into B tier. I'm going to go still A tier overall, just because the starter in Harris outweighs the group, and he's still going to be the guy playing, call it 80% of the time this year. But certainly if there's an injury there or times where Harris gets spelled and they're talking about trying to find ways to reduce his workload, there's going to be a lot of question marks there. So I'd love to see Pittsburgh try to sign a veteran free agent. It might be a bit tougher to do to find someone who wants to come in as a clear backup, but at this point, I think guys just want jobs, and so that's a position this team should be addressing. Wide receiver next, and a really talented and pretty young group of guys in Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, of course, the rookies, George Pickens, Calvin Austin. I'm not sure even the oldest guy in that room is of those names. It's probably Deontay Johnson at 25 years old. So you do lack that veteran guy, but I'll take talent over the veteran experience as opposed to a really veteran group that just isn't that good overall. I think Pickens, there's a bit of caution with him. I think he's going to struggle a bit this year more than people are talking about because he is 21. He's an underclassman, and he really barely played last year, missing most of the season with a torn ACL he suffered in March of 2021. Did come back late in the year, played in 4 or 5 games, only caught 5 passes though. So there's going to be a learning curve for him. Even Austin, I think he's certainly more experienced, has more production and snaps, but he's going to have to learn how to play in the slot more than he did at Memphis. And so I think there is a bit of a learning curve for each of those rookies. You're looking for a big bounce back season from Chase Claypool. Deontay Johnson, to me, I'm not as concerned about his season last year as others are. I certainly would be willing to pay him in terms of a long term deal, around $20 million per year. So I think there's going to be some growth and development and still some growing pains within that group. I'm going to put that receiver group into A tier because I think the talent there's really immense. And I think Johnson is number one. I think Claypool has the opportunity to bounce back. And I think those young guys are going to get better as the season goes along. Also throw in a specialist like Gunnar Olszewski, who's going to be a return man, kicks, punts, and coverage. Miles Boykin, a height, weight, speed guy. Not sure what you're going to get out of him, but he can even offer special teams value as well, and that's going to certainly help as that number 5, number 6 guy on the depth chart. Up next are the tight ends, and Pat Friarmuth, to me, everyone knows he had a good rookie season, but don't take for granted how good of a year that was, because when you're a rookie tight end, to me, that position has the second toughest jump of any rookie to make in the NFL, only behind, of course, quarterback. And so for Friarmuth to come in and really be as advertised, and he was basically since day one at training camp last year, that sure-handed, smart tight end. He's got to work on his inline blocking, getting stronger overall, but it was really encouraging to see the progression of Zach Gentry last year, and he needed to have a good summer, and he really grew into his body, improved his blocking. He was a raw guy coming out of Michigan, really good size, but didn't have a lot of experience blocking, was a quarterback in New Mexico in high school, and briefly played receiver and I think quarterback early on at Michigan before moving to tight end. So depth here is lacking a bit overall in terms of number 3. You do have Kevin Rader and Jay Sternberger, the former top 100-ish pick of the Green Bay Packers. I'm gonna again, it's debating between A and B tier. This one's tough. I think what Gentry does for this offense, it's not flashy, but it's going to suit what Pittsburgh wants and needs well. So I might be a bit biased here, but I'm going to go A tier as well because I think Friarmuth's going to continue to make that jump in his second year, improve as a blocker. Gentry maybe improve as a receiver a bit, but you're going to have a really solid 12 personnel grouping with Pat Friarmuth and Zach Gentry. Now we get to the offensive line to finish out the offensive side of our rankings. Obviously, it's one of the biggest question marks, if not the biggest question mark when you're talking positional groups at large. It's the X factor last year and they failed. It's the X factor this year and we'll see what happens. There's more talent, more stability, more continuity to the offensive line this year. But how much better are they going to get is going to be the question. I certainly love the addition of James Daniels. Mason Cole was not going to be a long-term guy in Pittsburgh despite that 3-year deal, but I think he'll bring some stability to the center position. And if your center, I think, is just average, I'll take it, not riding the highs and lows that happened last year with Kendrick Green. I think Green was put into a very difficult situation, so I'm not blaming him solely. But certainly I think you're going to see more stability from more veteran guy in Mason Cole over Kendrick Green. Kevin Dotson, year 3, big year for him. Core for right tackle, to me, is just an average guy that I don't get super excited about. But again, there is going to be some continuity. He's basically the veteran in that room, though you're hearing James Daniels stepping up as that more vocal leader. Chuk's a pretty quiet guy. Dan Moore at left tackle got better the last 4 to 6 weeks and needs to carry that over into year 2. Needs to have a better anchor, be stronger, and really be able to be more aggressive because new O-line coach Pat Meyer is going to ask this offensive line to be a lot more aggressive in their set, and you got to be strong and powerful, be able to put your feet in the ground if you want to be successful there. So the ranking overall, it's debating clearly between C or D tier. I'll be a little optimistic and say C tier on this one because of the addition of Daniels and Cole and the growth of some of those young guys. But how they play collectively is still a big question mark, and it's hard to have a lot of confidence in the starting five until they prove it. Flipping over to the defense and the defensive line, and obviously now knowing that Stephon Tuitt will no longer play for the Steelers or in the NFL is going to change this group a lot. I still think it's going to be better than what it was last year. A healthier group overall. You do get back Tyson Alualu, Montravius Adams returns. What an Isaiah Lattimore can do in year number two. DeMarvin Leal, I think, is going to be raw and not play a lot, and he's probably going to take his rookie lumps as he gets better against the run and kind of playing more of a base end role as opposed to kind of playing a bit more on the edges at Texas A&M and at a lighter weight for the Aggies last year. But I think this group can be better. I think more stability, especially in the middle with Alualu, who I understand the guy's 35, 36, coming off a fractured ankle, but this man found the fountain of youth whenever he was healthy the past 2 years in Pittsburgh or 3 years in Pittsburgh, and so I think he can get back to a really good level, and then Adams being on this team for an entire offseason is going to help him as well. So I'm going to go B tier on this one. Wormley did well last year with 7 sacks. Hayward, I think, right up there with Aaron Donald in terms of best defensive lineman in football. So Tuitt might have pushed this into A tier, but still the group I think collectively will be more sound technically and mentally. You won't have those weak links as you had with Bugs or Mondo trying to play nose tackle last year. So depth, if one guy goes down, that may create an issue, but right now I'll put it in B tier. Outside linebackers, and certainly a big discussion here is depth behind your obvious starters in TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, and they've added some, mid to low tier veteran guys in Jannard Avery and Tuzar Skipper. Derek Tusker returns, some interesting and intriguing undrafted guys, and Texas A&M's Tyree Johnson, Pittsburgh loves the Aggies, and Auburn's TD Moultrie. So I understand the depth concerns here, and you want to find a better number three or hope somebody can kind of prove they can be the number three on this team. But listen, you got TJ Watt, who right up there, best defensive player in football. Alex Highsmith, I thought, really started to make strides late last year. He got healthy and just more experience overall. So I got to put this group into A tier because when you have a guy like Watt and a really good complement in Alex Highsmith, I get the depth worries there. But, you got your defensive player of the year. That's going to put you into A tier. Now talking about the off-ball linebackers, and certainly a group under the bright lights and microscope this year. Devin Bush, again, make or break year for him. What you're going to get from Devin Bush, I don't know. I think it's a better environment this year. He's now 2 years removed from the ACL tear. He can use this offseason to focus fully on football and not rehabbing it and getting medically cleared. Brian Flores will help, a better defensive line. Even Sans Tuitt is going to help. But still, Bush needs to be more aggressive and physical and be able to take on and shed blockers better than he has in the past. And while he's a good athlete, he's got to be more technically sound in coverage. So obviously, the jury is very much out on Devin Bush right now. Did like the addition of Miles Jack. He did not play his best football last year in Jacksonville, but still a good athlete, still relatively young, and certainly the best coverage linebacker Pittsburgh has had since Ryan Shazier. Beyond that, it's kind of a mess of guys, and they're all cut from similar cloths, whether you're talking Robert Spillane or Marcus Allen or UG3 or Mark Robinson. Buddy Johnson, what you're going to get from him in year 2, 6 defensive snaps last year. Hopefully he's the guy that could emerge. That would be ideal. But I think there's going to be some question marks overall with Devin Bush. Jack is not going to be an upper echelon off-ball linebacker. I think will be better than Joe Schobert and Avery Williamson, and it's good to get him in free agency as opposed to a mid-year trade or right before the season starts as what happened with Schobert. But I got to put this group in C tier until Devin Bush really shows he can be the first-round pick Pittsburgh envisioned him as. Going to cornerback now, and it's not a group that has a super high ceiling, though I was really happy to see Akella Witherspoon come back on that 2-year, $8 billion deal. When Levi Wallace signed, before Witherspoon, I was concerned that meant the door was closed on Witherspoon returning. I was happy to be wrong about that because I think you need to have that really athletic, toolsy cover corner to deal with Jamar Chase twice a year, to deal with Amari Cooper now in the AFC North, to deal with maybe even Rashad Bateman, who more of a slot guy, but played well for Baltimore when he got healthy last year. Whenever you're just facing the top, receivers in football in general, when you face a Mike Evans or whoever you want to put into that tier. There's so many great receivers in football. You need a guy that's not just a higher floor, lower ceiling type, which is how I kind of categorize loosely Levi Wallace and Cam Sutton. Witherspoon can be that higher end guy, has to be able to prove he can be a consistent guy over a 16-game season. He's yet to do that in his NFL career, but certainly ended last year on a high note for Pittsburgh. From there, Levi Wallace, Cam Sutton, a bit similar in terms of their overall makeup mentality. Not the most athletic guys, pretty good technical players, will come up, support the run. Sutton's tackling has improved in big ways. Sutton, of course, offers more versatility, and we'll see how it shakes out. Will Sutton play in the slot more this year on run downs and early downs? I think he should. Pittsburgh was hesitant to do so last year. Will you see Arthur Millette have a role there? That was kind of his role last year, the first, second down against some occasional 12 personnel packages when the Pittsburgh stayed in nickel. Millette would come in. I'm going to put Trey Nord with the safeties right now, and same with DeMonte Casey. But in terms of that top three corners with Sutton and Witherspoon and Wallace, and then behind that, James Pierre, I think he's got the traits, the tools, took his lumps last year. He's got to be able to bounce back and play better above the neck. And then Justin Lane's going to be your gunner special teamer. So where to put this group? I'm debating between B and C tier. I'll lean B tier. I'm being a little generous here with this list overall, because I think you have a solid group of guys, but you do kind of wonder a little bit with the depth behind the top three where Cam Sutton fits exactly, and do you have some of those higher end athletic cover corners? But overall, I think it's a smart group, and again, retaining Witherspoon I thought was really key on a reasonable contract. Rounding out the defense with the safeties, of course, Minkah Fitzpatrick, all-pro player. Once Pittsburgh put him back into his normal post safety, spin down and play robber coverage last year role after the first 2 weeks when they tried to make him a slot corner to begin the year, you got kind of the old Minkah results back. I know that didn't always translate into production, but still, I thought Minkah played really well and certainly bailed this team out on allowing even more big runs than they did last year. Troy Ledman's coming back to play strong safety, just a classic box safety. You've seen small incremental growth from him year by year, but I think he's pretty close to being maxed out at this point. Hopefully he can clean up his tackling a bit more this year and get back to where it was 2 years ago. Depth here, strong safety. I don't see a whole lot there. There's Killebrew. How about a Donovan Steiner, the only undrafted player from last year's class to still be with the team? Free safety, there's versatility there. I think Trey Norwood certainly played well last year as a man cover corner in dime packages. Because can his role evolve and become a slot corner? We'll see about that. DeMonte Casey, I was good with the signing, but he is a bit older. He didn't play particularly well in Dallas last year, so you wonder where he's going to fit. He's not going to be really a strong safety type of guy because he's pretty undersized. He's physical, but undersized overall to be that box type of guy. So with Minkah Fitzpatrick, though, kind of really dominating this group. It's kind of similar to the outside linebackers where you have that one superstar, a good complement in Edmonds. So I think Highsmith is better than Edmonds overall. And then depth here with a little bit of question marks. But again, Minkah, Norwood, Edmonds, I can live with a strong safety. I'll put this into A tier. Rounding things out, we're talking specialists. So, of course, kickers, punters, long snappers, Chris Boswell, Presley Harvin, and Christian Kuntz. Everybody knows how good Chris Boswell has been for this team and hopefully will continue to be for this team. We focus so much on Deontay Johnson, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and their possible/probable contract extensions. To me, Chris Boswell is about as much of a slam dunk for an extension, at least in terms of what should happen, as Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's been that good and that reliable for this team and will be counted on just as much this year as last year because his offense is unlikely to be super crisp and efficient and great in the red zone. So you're going to need a kicker to be able to connect from 50 plus and be able to, finish off drives when they stall out in the red zone and things like that. So very little questions about Boz overall. Harvin, consistency's always been his issue dating back to Georgia Tech. I talked about that in my report on him prior to the draft, talked about that after Pittsburgh made him the pick, and you certainly saw that throughout training camp and, of course, during the regular season as well. So his spot is not guaranteed. He'll be the favorite right now, but he'll play against the waiver wire as well. And then Christian Kuntz, his first year as a long snapper last year, seemed to do just fine. So Boswell, is an A caliber, maybe even an S caliber player, but with the big question marks there at punter and long snapper, you don't have a Greg Warren type of guy. I'm going to put this in B tier. and adding one more group to the tier listing, and those are the Steelers coaches. I'm thinking all the coaches, from head coach to the coordinators to the positional coaches as well. I think it's a good group overall. Obviously opinions vary depending on who you're talking about. The evaluation and tier of a Mike Tomlin might be different than an Eddie Faulkner versus Grady Brown, and things like that. But from a coordinator standpoint, Canada certainly going to be a critical year for him in year two. Now that this is really his offense overall, it's kind of been molded in the shape of what he wants to do and run. I think Terrell Lawson is a really good coach and good DC overall. The emphasis on body language and taking the football away and turnover circuit drills they do and things like that. That's really important. Danny Smith, you guys, do I need to say more about Danny Smith? But certainly developing Harvin's going to be big on his list this year. And some really good and underrated positional coaches in terms of Carl Dunbar, to me, is an excellent guy who's not only worked with the defensive line, but the edge guys as well. I'm excited about the hire of Frisman Jackson. I think Alfredo Roberts has done a tremendous job last year with Pat Friarmuth and Zach Gentry in his first year as Pittsburgh's tight end coach, replacing the retired and long tenured James Daniel. Of course, adding Brian Flores, a big win there as well. I'll just say overall, I think it's a good coaching staff, but the results have to eventually speak for themselves. And while Tomlin's never had a losing season, stat is nice to talk about in theory. Pittsburgh does not hang banners and put trophies in trophy cases for being 9-8 or 10-7 or making the wild card game or anything like that. This team is in a 6-year playoff victory drought, their longest such streak since 1966 to 1971. So the basically start of Noel's tenure right before he came in, and then the first couple years as he kind of built up that team, and that's not acceptable for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So with that said, it's hard to put this group in anything other than B tier right now until they kind of prove they can get those results. So those are the final results, and I thought it'd be a little less clumped than what it was. Nothing in S tier, nothing in D tier. You certainly could put the offensive line in D tier, and I wouldn't really argue with you one bit there, but I'll be a little optimistic with the addition of James Daniels, I should say, overall. And then in terms of what could be S tier, could it be the edge group if there was better depth? I think it would be. Receiver, if you see Pickens and Austin materialize, Claypool bounce back, I think it would get there as well. If you get maybe a better depth situation at running back, that may bump it into S tier as well. So you kind of wonder, it looks pretty good overall. You got 5 groups in A tier, 4 groups in B tier, just 3 in C tier. Why am I and maybe people a bit negative and cynical about the Steelers' chances this year? It really comes down to quarterback, and if your quarterback's in C tier, other things can be in S and A and B tier. If your quarterback is not going to bring you that elite level play, it's going to be difficult to compete. Now, could Pickett be that guy? Sure, potentially. Pittsburgh, that's what they're hoping and aiming for. That's why I took him 20th overall. But until you kind of really see that in action, it's hard to really get there to put that anything higher than C tier right now. So that is my tier ranking. Let me know what you agree and disagree with in the comments below. I will, if I can, I'm just kind of new at making this. If I can save this template, I will put it in the description of this video, and you guys can make it yourself and see what you guys come up with. Obviously, the pictures, correspond to the position groups of TJ Watt is your outside linebackers, Devin Bush, your inside linebackers. You guys get the idea. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this stuff, this idea, let me know. I'll kind of go forward with it and do different tier rankings of different Steeler-related things as well. Just let me know your thoughts and your feedback in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.